Hi everyone, and welcome to our session on connecting silos or even breaking up silos here. And classical music is all about networking, connection, collaboration, and synergies with a look towards the future, also factoring in media. And so the three of us thought we'd share some experience and cases that we've done collectively and fill you in on like very old synergies between the three relevant segments of our music industry, between concert promoters as represented here by Michael, between publishers, Tash, and labels, myself, and not only the old synergies that we can reap here, but also interesting and new ones if we really join forces and get things right. So at the outset, I'd like to ask Tash and Michael to introduce yourselves, let's hear what, from your perspective, what's interesting in this panel and what's your background, maybe also a little bit about your organizations.
Hi, I'm Michael. First of all, thanks for the invitation. I'm head of concert at DK Deutsche Klassik. Maybe I should explain a little bit what this is. So we are a German promoter. More or less, it's a merge of some traditional German promoters from different cities. So we merged the concert series in different cities like Hamburg and Cologne and Düsseldorf and Frankfurt. So it's 8 cities in all together. And they have, most of them have a very, very old and long tradition. So, for example, in Cologne, we are celebrating 111 years next season. It's a funny number, but for Cologne, I learned it's the right number to celebrate because of Carnival and everything down there. So we merged them and have still left the brand there. So we maintain the traditional brand mark in every city, but we organize everything and plan everything from one place. That's Hamburg. That's our main city. So we try to find synergies in everything, like concert planning, ticketing, and marketing, and everything from one place for every city. So that's what we are doing. That's 200 concerts per season, roughly. Most of them are subscription concerts. Some are special concerts. So we have subscription for everything. We have subscription for international orchestras, soloist-based subscriptions, and many more. I think that's good to know for everything we wanted to talk about in this panel. And that's, I think, is good to know, to talk about the synergies and the silos we can develop for, or we have developed for special artists together with publishers and all the labels.
Over to you, Tash.
I run Universal Music Publishing Classics and Screen Group. So we are the classical and screen division of Universal Music Publishing. And we represent catalogues like Ricordi, Durand Salabert Eschig, EMB, and Decca Publishing. So that's every sort of composers from Puccini and Donizetti and Respighi through to Poulenc and Messiaen, through to more avant-garde German composers like Bernhard Lang and Georg Friedrich Haas, and then composers like Max Richter, and into the sort of more contemporary classical and screen composers like Nicholas Britell, Danny Elfman, Alexandre Desplat, some of the big American screen composers. And what we do is we have teams all around the world in different territories. Some of our brilliant German team are here today. And we look at ways that we can obviously not just publish the copyrights of these composers, of the legacy composers and also the living composers, but also look at ways of new exploitation, new ways of promoting. So we're looking at, getting works on stage, commissions for composers, opera commissions, orchestral commissions, ensemble commissions. But we're also looking at sync, we're looking at reworks of pieces of music, we're looking at collaborations for composers with songwriters, we're looking for film and TV scores. So it's a really sort of 360 look at the way that composers work in 2024, whether they are legacy composers or whether they're contemporary composers. So our approach to the way that classical music publishing is done is that there is a space for all composers of any type, of any shape, size, form, variety, because there are audiences, and audiences are changing, and we need to listen to the audiences as publishers rather than sitting back and entirely dictating what we believe to be right. And so we have teams, as I said, some here in Germany, in France, in Italy, in America, in the UK, in Hungary, and a number of other countries. And the teams all work together in order to promote the composers across the world in a really connected way. So working with label colleagues and promoters and extending that connection even further is a really important part of what we do.
Great. I think connecting with the audience and learning from them, I think that's a very good cue. And this is how we decided we'd kick off this session here by having a look what's our music fans' life like, what keeps them busy, what keeps them interested. And this is a piece of US research, this attention clock, but I think, with a grain of salt, it could be also applied to European or Asian audiences. And the first thing that's striking here is that this attention clock doesn't have 24 hours, but I think it's 32 something, which already shows, okay, people are super busy. They're multitasking. They're doing media consumption alongside other activities, and this is actually the environment where we collectively, with our artists, with our projects, need to cut through. And well, grantedly, each organization, each kind of segment, publishing, promoting concerts, recording, we have our mechanisms and success formulas on how to cut through, but to do so in a super meaningful fashion. Again, I think, we need those synergies here. And well, the starting point is that the segment where live performances take place stands for roughly a quarter of this attention clock, if we assume it's 32 hours. And of course, there are many rival activities, but maybe Michael, you can fill us in what makes that experience so special.
Yeah, exactly. So there we have to deal with a lot of other media activities. First of all, I want to say, I think 5 hours and 20 minutes for work-related activities. It's quite not that much. But okay, anyways. We have to deal with not a lot of other media activities, but we strongly believe that live performance is still something that gathers people together. They experience the concert together in the same room, make the same, share the same emotions, and create memories that last longer than the concert, and they can remember to it later. So we still believe that concerts will always have their place and will still or will have their point against other media activities, because other media activities are mostly for their own, so individual, and as I said, for concerts it's more or less that you share with other people in a community, and you can talk with other people, meet them in front of the concert, go together to the concert, and then talk about it later on. That's something you can't do in person with other media activities.
Can I just make a comment on the attention clock? Sure. I think when I saw that insight that came through, whenever it was 6 months ago, it just struck me about the amount of attention that is trying to be taken up by all these different elements. So for artists these days, and for composers, I think it's supremely hard to cut through, because the attention is being spread so thinly. So, that 7 hours of concert time also obviously includes your washing and your shop down the supermarket and all those other things.
Getting together with friends.
Exactly, all of the other elements. So I think for artists to cut through these days, what we're looking at is a very different picture, a very different landscape to even 10 years ago, let alone 50 years ago.
I think to me also two things transpire from this. First of all, to emphasize the point that Michael has made. Some people in our industry try to, position or they perceive live concerts as opposed to media activities, especially live streaming, as kind of rivaling activities. And against the backdrop of what you just said, and also the piece of UK research that was presented here at Classical Next earlier this week, I think it's fair to say it's very different things. People are seeking out very different experiences.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a rival thing to have a live concert and the stream afterwards. I think that you add a new component to it. So you maybe you experience the concert live, and then you have the chance to experience that emotion again later on. Or if you don't have that time to go, but you heard from your friends or everything, or from other people how great it was, you have the chance to have that emotion again later on.
Exactly. So I think that's the second takeaway, touch points. The more touch points you have for an artist or a project around this attention clock, it's actually super valuable to be present at many of these activities, also the media activities, as diverse as they are. Maybe from a composer's perspective, Tash, you might want to comment.
Well, I think it goes back to my point in the introduction of composers these days having, all these multiple lanes in which to speak to audiences, and not all of them are able to, or interested in composing for all of the lanes of all the touch points. But it is therefore also quite a confusing space for artists and composers, because they come in believing that they should be doing lots of these things. So really, it's about clarifying what is the important and the area that they're really, really focused in. But it does provide lots of opportunity points to connect with audiences. I mean, gaming is a good one, where we have, obviously there's lots of film and TV composers who also work in video gaming and long-form scoring, and that's now translating into the concert space with lots of long-form gaming concerts, which are, from a ticketing perspective, as we understand as publishers, doing extremely well. And there's more programming happening in that space around the world. We're seeing it from certain venues. So the cross-pollination between these spaces, I think, is really interesting.
So let's get more concrete here. This is actually a little bit derived from the attention clock. Also a slide where there are multiple touch points, multiple services, opportunities, activities for artists. And also, of course, when we have the artist in the center of this bubble here, that includes their respective managements that we all work very closely with. And together we try to reap all of these synergies and explore these opportunities. And we've also made the distinction here between B2B opportunities and direct to consumer, D2C opportunities. And while the business to business opportunities, of course, and this is what the session is also about, involve a close alignment between promoters and labels. There's also the alignment with the publishers that you can see up there, because it's business relations. Then you will see that, of course, we work very closely with a network of digital platforms, with our streaming partners, with our social media partners and ecosystems, and we can deliver results there for our artist community. But this is actually not the focus. The focus of this session is what you see in the kind of red squares, where we want to focus on publishing, on live concerts, and where we also want to bring into the mix how live streaming and how video streaming can reinforce for an artist the perception of their projects. What is also listed here on the D2C end, which we actually have a focus on at Deutsche Grammophon and Universal, is the D2C sales, which actually have become increasingly important also from an artist perspective in terms of scale, but also in terms of communication and loyalty with their fan communities, which we can foster through not only the regular album and vinyl sales, but also merch, special editions, signed editions with art cards and these product configurations. And also we can also help, this is again synergetic with the entire community, with audience development, with formats such as Yellow Lounge, but there are also other options that we can explore in that area. And when we now change the perspective, how do you both see, the synergies in this ecosystem here?
Title is opportunity for artists, and of course we will see it later slides in detail for some projects. But generally, from our side, with that lot of cities and that much concert opportunities we can offer an artist, for them it's of course very, very easy to really focus on their project that they want to do, because they tell us, okay, we have that idea, we want to do it, and we talk about it, and then we say, yeah, we like it, and we want to bring it to our cities. Just give us a special period of time, and we will book you all the concerts. You only have one contact to deal with for that concerts, and we will contact all the other partners and develop the ideas from there on. But we have that time which you can focus completely on that project that you want to do in that time. So there's only that project you can do, and everything else is on us, and we will make that happen for you. So that's how we deal with these kinds of projects these days.
And I think we're going to come to sort of timelines later, aren't we, and how things track through. But one thing I was thinking about with this opportunity for artists wheel is that it gives us the ability to extend the life cycle of a project for artists, for composers, because you've got these multiple touch points. So if something isn't necessarily tracking in one particular space, it's much easier to then pivot into the next one to see if it's going to track in that space. And again, that only works by connecting all the relevant areas together, all these elements that surround the artist composer. So it gives us that real ability to analyze, as behind the scenes, the way that pieces of music are reacting with audiences, the way that albums are reacting with audiences in these different mediums. So it really, you're getting a lot more feedback, sort of in real-time feedback on a lot of these projects, rather than them going out into the world and then 10 years later, everybody realizing that this either was a huge success or that it didn't actually didn't move the dial, didn't make any difference.
Let's talk about huge successes, how they come about. And in particular, we have two cases that among the three of us here on stage we share. One is Víkingur Ólafsson and the other is Max Richter. It's actually all about timing and lead times and preparation, strategic preparation. And this is actually how we have approached these projects with Max or with Víkingur. Also Daniel Hope with his recent dance project is a good example. And obviously it starts with the concept creation, and it would be interesting from your perspective how we kick this off.
At the beginning is the idea of the artist, of course, and what this slide shows very good is that all of us have to be on that project from the very beginning. So there's no chance from our side that when some of the partners get into too late that the project is going that well, because you need the idea of the artist, you have to share it with the label, you have to share it with the publishers, and you have really started, because we are long-term planning. That's I think still a little problem in the classical world, that we have to plan at least 2 years in advance for at least for our subscriptions. If there's an extra concert, of course we have some shorter times, but if we want to present it in our subscription series, what we normally do with that kind of projects we need that time in advance. So we have to start very early. We have to be on the table very early to get it right. So we know what the artist wants, what his idea is, how he wants to develop the live experience to the album and everything. So yeah, that's as you mentioned, Daniel Hope. So I know it was a recent dance project. It was in February this year, 13 concerts in Germany, and he told us when we sit together on his last project 2 years ago, and he started to pitching some ideas, and I think he did the same with you guys.
Funnily, it was actually the same day. I was also in Hamburg, and so yes, we both talked to Daniel in parallel meetings, and this idea came about.
Yeah, and he started to pitch some ideas. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? And what about dance? And then that was the project we thought is the best to come after his last project, which was America. And obviously then he came to you and asked the same question. So it's funny. So yeah, but that shows very well that we are started from this on the same day with the artist and developed it from the beginning together as partners.
You're even early in the creative process sometimes with your
sometimes, yes.
composers.
Well, I was just thinking, to your point, Michael, the earlier that everybody's involved, the better. The earlier the conversation starts, the more everybody can plan. But yeah, I mean, we can be involved years in advance when it is a kernel of a thought from a composer. And they're sort of just stress testing it with our promotion teams, with our A&R teams. And really then our job is to think about how can, as you're talking about, how can we help conceptualize that? How can we help bring that to life? And what is the best vehicle or vehicles, going back to the previous slide, for this to then live out in the world, and how is it going to connect with audiences? But if we're brought in very late on a conversation, which does happen with some composers, then it makes the process quite truncated and quite complicated. So I think my point is always the earlier that we're joining these areas together and having quite an open conversation around this is the project or the album or the work or the commission, this is where we think it could go. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? How are we going to build the world around this piece of music?
So for Daniel Hope Dance, it was 2 years lead time. How was it for Max Richter Voices that you published, you promoted in Hamburg at Elbphilharmonie, we released and marketed? That's even 3 years probably in the making.
That idea had been percolating for Max Richter for 10 years. So I think it was actually conceived as a piece much further back. It obviously then sat in his brilliant brain for many years and sort of, just mulled over. But yeah, I mean, to your point, Clemens, it's an extremely long process of bringing it from the page, which is also not the first point. And we spend a lot of time with our editorial teams bringing it to life on the page, on the score and parts, and then moving it into the next phases. And certainly from a label perspective, I've watched many of the labels inside Universal and elsewhere sort of grappling with what is a project? What does this sound like? What does this feel like to an artist? What does the artist want to say? And how do we give you that, in a nutshell to go out and sell to the world?
Yep, I think it's a good example, because when you say that was an idea he had for 10 years, and that's why we have to talk very early, because then we came in and know, okay, there will be a reflector at the Elbphilharmonie where Max Richter get 4 dates at the Elbphilharmonie and he can do whatever he wants. And we said, okay, that's a perfect spot to release Voices or to present it to the audience in a concert. So I think that's a good example, that we have to talk very early, even from the beginning, from the idea. And if there's not a concert coming up directly or everything, but it's always good to know what's happening around the artist. So, and everyone from us has his own informations from other spots and know his audience and know some other interesting facts, like the idea with the reflector at the Elbphilharmonie. So, yeah, I think that's a good example for that.
So once there's the creative alignment with the artist and among us as partners, I mean, there'll be also different constellations. It's not like there's always this constellation. So we've just singled out those two cases where it has worked particularly well between our three segments. Then it's down to us to actually produce and make it happen, right? Produce sheet music, get the concert dates in place. I found one thing actually very interesting, Michael, when we chatted earlier. That was the question of repertoire exclusivity.
Yeah, that's another case with Víkingur. That was also during the pandemic. We had a concert with him during the pandemic at the Elbphilharmonie. Still the times where we had a concert at 6:30 and another one at 9 p.m. So between these two concerts, we sit together and had something to eat. And he came up with the idea, what do you guys think of Goldberg? And we said, oh yeah, great, after your last project. And I would only want to play Goldberg that year, the whole year. Yeah, and we said, yeah, that's very good. And we said, okay, if you want to make Goldberg in this and that season, we definitely start blocking that repertoire from now on until you have played Goldberg. So that's that you have that exclusivity for the repertoire completely for yourself.
We'll get back to Víkingur and Goldberg later. So then there's a crucial point that's actually going public with the project. And I think this is where quite beautifully for the projects we've collectively taken care of, we managed to have a close alignment of the timing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's another good example for different touch points, as you said, because then there is your album announcement and you link it with the live dates. So, and we announce our live dates and link it with the info for the album release. So there are a lot of different points where you can really directly get to the consumer and let him know what will happen. So if we of course do pre-concert mailings to our concerts, and then we can tell the audience not only how they come to the hall, but we can also tell them the artist will sign after the concert. So there are a lot of touch points to let him everything know around this project and around the artist.
And I think another touch point that we as publishers and also as labels look at quite a lot is synchronization. So that's the connection between the audio and a secondary visual, TV show, film, commercial, trailer, video game. So as soon as the piece of music is recorded, when it's handed back over from the recording session, then before it gets to the release point, the sync teams around Universal and any other company that has sync people are looking at which bits of that piece then we can use to give in a business-to-business context to directors, to producers, to music supervisors ahead of the release. And again, the information sharing is crucial, because if we can tell music supervisors and producers and directors of movies that are upcoming or commercials that are upcoming that the album is going to be released on X date, then there is essentially, in-kind marketing opportunities that those producers and directors can get from the album being released by Deutsche Grammophon, by Universal, by any record label, and the marketing value that goes into that is quite interesting to some directors and producers. And so even before we get to the point of the release of the album and then through to the concerts, there's a lot of this behind the scenes work on who else, what other touch points can we start to coordinate. And actually I was thinking, Clemens, we at one point had, I think, a sync for it may have been a Max Richter piece, actually, where then it was a single release, and the single date, Deutsche Grammophon realigned the single date to hit the point of when the commercial was going to be released, so that we had the commercial from the brand being released on the same day as the single. So maximizing that opportunity for the artist and giving them that biggest possible platform. So you're doing it behind the scenes as well as then from the point of release.
Obviously, that's an ideal case if timely alignment is so close. Well, typically sync is at a rather later stage when there's a second or third campaign phase for a project, while the touring may already still be going on. And just briefly going back to the release and the announcement date, what's also, I think, quite beautiful, has worked beautifully between us, is like asset sharing, that we share among us the creative assets, the video tools that primarily get produced at the label, but it's a collaborative effort. And also we get aligned on the visuals of a project. What would we like to convey collectively? And most importantly, what does the artist want to convey visually also with his project or her project, and how can we support that vision and make it seem holistic to the outside world?
Yeah, that's another good point. So, of course, if the project is coming up and all the visuals are ready, we directly start only to use the visuals that are exactly for that project, because you guys are doing a lot of advertisement, we guys are doing a lot of advertisement, so you have another touch points with the same visuals, and you get the artist on different spots again. So that's very helpful for us, of course. Yeah.
And I mean, we could just see it yielded results. In the case of Daniel Hope, we had a #1 on the classical charts very early on because of the also ideal alignment of the promotion on national TV and local newspapers, the concerts, the venue sales happening, and was actually pretty heavy release season with the New Year's concert and other major releases coming up. And well, Daniel prevailed as #1.
Yeah, and that's he came to us when we talked about the project idea, and of course we asked the artist, what, besides of the music and everything, what happens on stage, what is important for you around this project? And he told us, okay, I want to meet my audience, and I want, of course, to sell CDs. So okay, then that's a point for us. So then, if he wants that much, of course, we will do everything to enforce that, and that worked for that release very, very well. So we sold after the concerts, and he even came out to the audience in the intermission a lot of CDs afterwards. So yeah.
And streams as well. And this actually leads to the point how we have actually managed in some projects to initiate a second campaign phase and reignite interest, and that is by doing also again with our promoter partners and publishing if clearance is required. We've done this together to create a broadcast and live stream opportunity on Stage Plus. That's the platform that we at Deutsche Grammophon have launched as an additional service to the artists that really would like to, convey their artistic work, not just a month after a studio recording session, but the immediacy of our business. And I think we can all confirm that has become much more relevant. And with these live streams on Stage Plus, and in parallel, we actually secured an Arte broadcast for the project. So we had visibility that very much transcended the concert that you promoted in Berlin, and also translated into the digital space.
Yeah, digital space, and I think they show it on Friday or Saturday on RT at prime time. So that's a very, very great success for us too. Not directly, because as a promoter, it's an indirect effect, but also, of course, good for the artist, for the venue and everything to be on stage again. So yeah.
And I think for something like Voices, I mean, the point about that piece of music is that it should live on for another 25, 30, 35, 40 years. There's no limit to that piece being toured and promoted and programmed and streamed continuously, going back to the wheel of the attention wheel. in multiple touch points again. So again, that extending the life cycle is so valuable by connecting all of these elements.
And of course, the stream is much important, especially for projects which are very, very big and not that easy to produce again on tour, or you only can do it once or twice. Then it's of course great to have that live stream for later on.
Yeah, and I think part of the job to go back to the starting point of the conception point of a work, a lot of the work that we do with composers is also about how are we going to make this work as portable as possible, as playable in as many different places as possible with the infrastructure that a orchestra might have or a venue might have, and how complicated or otherwise does it become if you have 16 harps or 72 basses, or just making that up. But essentially that is also part of the conversation. So this really micro analysis of every element whilst protecting the creativity for the composer and with the composer and their vision is so valuable all the way through that chain.
Well, that's a great point, making a project portable to as many different areas. And maybe let's have, in this respect, a closer look also at the Víkingur Ólafsson case. And I should mention up front, well, Michael said it, that you have promoted probably 24 concerts with Víkingur by now.
We did 7 in October with him in our cities, and 2 are coming now in June.
Yeah, plus the previous tours, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And I should also mention that we actually have also had a publishing arrangement with Víkingur, who is very well known for, well, his Bach interpretations, but also for his transcriptions and arrangements of Bach's music. And so we joined forces there between Universal Music Publishing and Ricordi, which is part of your portfolio, Tash, and Deutsche Grammophon. It's actually part of a Deutsche Grammophon edition at Ricordi that we also unlock opportunities in publishing for Víkingur.
Yeah, I mean, I think his transcriptions and his arrangements are very unique. And I think, there are many, many arrangements of Bach music out there. Víkingers stand quite on their own. And the point is, therefore, we, should be able to protect them as a publisher and look after them for him. And then working with Deutsche Grammophon, figure out new ways of getting those copyrights into other places, as well as Víkingur being this powerhouse of a touring artist.
And so I think this case shows beautifully how we unlocked all of the opportunities to reach very, very special status for Víkingur, making him the Bach interpreter that's most listened to on this planet, the most streamed living Bach interpreter. He's catching up quickly to Glenn Gould. So I think this has only been possible in this constellation where we employed all of the touch points, and that involved live streams that is particular for the Goldberg projects. We not only did once, but we will do actually at least twice, and there's another project coming up in Hamburg where we have another media opportunity. So we live streamed Víkingur's Goldberg once from Seoul Art Center in December last year, as well as from Harpa in Reykjavik this past February. And there's another interesting media project with the Goldberg and Víkingur coming up in Hamburg that involves also Steinway as a joint partner.
Exactly, and just to say that everything we are just talking about Víkingur came from his very first idea he shared with us when he told us, I want to play Goldberg one season only, and I want to tour it completely around the world. That's what he told us. So we sat with him and said, okay, that's a great idea. We have two great halls in Hamburg. So what do you think? You start your journey in Hamburg at the Leishalle, an old traditional hall. Then you go around the world and you finish your complete Goldberg year or season at the Elbphilharmonie with your very last concert of Goldberg. And he liked the idea from the very beginning. So for now we had the concert in October, and we will have the final concert in June, on 25th of June in the Elbphilharmonie. And now there's another perspective, because we are talking with all our other partners we have, and that included Steinway, and they have the new technology they call it Stereocast, where you can play and another piano on the other side of the world is playing the same piece at the same time. With that technology I don't get, but it works very, very, very good. So, and they didn't do a live concert stream for now. And we talked with them and said, okay, it's so successful that we will have another additional concert the day before Víkingur's last concert of Goldberg at the Elbphilharmonie. And they said, okay, that's our perfect opportunity to go live with our Stereocast and try to have the first Stereocast live from stage to other parts in the world. And that's, of course, another good point, because Víkingur went around the world with its Goldberg, comes to Hamburg, and then we will send Goldberg on all the pianos around the world again. So that's a very nice story.
We actually talked about live streaming as an additional touch point and campaign opportunity. And so let me also take this opportunity here to shed a little bit of light on Stage Plus that we launched at Deutsche Grammophon at the end of 2022. And so we've been around for a little more than a year. And what we've seen is actually that it's a powerful tool to employ in the positioning of our artists, and also in the album and release and project campaigns. And what makes Stage Plus, from our perspective, and I think this is also what we hear from the classical fan community and also from the artist community, what makes it significant is that basically you have all of the relevant media and touch points in one place. You have the live streaming option, and that actually now also includes live streams in Dolby Atmos. So it's a really immersive experience. Actually, it was Daniel Hope's Yellow Lounge that was the very first Dolby Atmos live stream. So part of another campaign that we just covered. And so it involves, next to the live streams, it involves also by now a pretty substantial video on demand archive. And it also involves the audio catalogs of the performing artists. So the consumer can have a holistic 360 experience of what keeps one artist busy. So experience all the touch points of a specific project in one place. And it actually gets reinforced by quality assured metadata. So whenever you basically enter an artist's name or also promoter's name, like Deutsche Klassik could be found on Stage Plus as a promotion partner. So all the relevant events that we've that you promoted and we have video recorded that will also be shown, and that also goes for festivals, for other venues, for orchestras, and it's all linked by the metadata. So whatever live stream, whatever video archive program, whatever audio album is linked to an artist or to a venue, to a festival, to a partner, also to publishers, can then be found and grouped as a search result on Stage Plus. And actually quite a powerful tool. And we're glad to have a framework for productions with you at Deutsche Klassik. And maybe it's interesting also to hear from your perspective what's interesting about this collaboration.
Yeah, for us it's very interesting because we can include small snippets of previous tours and projects we recorded together on the artist page or the concert pages for the next project, so that we can show our audience what great concerts we already did together and what great concerts the artist did in previous tours. That helps, of course, to sell tickets and to give the audience a better impression of the artist itself.
So it's again asset sharing that reinforces the perception of the project of an artist as a whole.
Yep.
And in terms of being immersive at Stage Plus, what you can also see here is the Apple Vision Pro. We've been the first classical streaming service to explore the opportunities of the mixed reality on that Apple device, and have already a few 3D productions online that can be experienced. And as the Apple Vision Pro launch in Europe is ahead in the next few weeks, so whoever is so lucky to get one of these devices, do check it out. We are one of the launch partners of Apple with Stage Plus, and I think it opens up also for all of us incredible new opportunities. Just think of the stage works that you promote at Ricordi, operas, or like Max Richter's ballets, Wolfworks, or Madame. I think it's utterly fascinating what we could do with that technology together.
Yeah, I think it's audio visuals streaming and the way that it's evolving, and it's only again another brilliant outlet for artists and composers' projects, isn't it? It's, it gives another lens to a project and hopefully brings in more audience and more curious listeners as well. So it's exciting.
Well, check it out for yourself. I think we put vouchers in all of the tote bags here at Classical Next, and would be very happy to receive your feedback. I mean, either way, there's always a room for improvement, and we want to improve also, to bring the most relevant and true experience to the artist and also the classical community. So we talked about Max a few times. He is in publishing, signed to you, Tash, has been for quite a few years now. And Blue Notebooks, to wrap the session up, is another interesting case of how we have reaped synergies across these three segments that we represent here.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting project because it's lived in the world for a long time now. So Blue Notebooks originally was released in 2004, and it's an album that Max wrote it's a protest album about the Iraq War back in 2003. So, you've got to think all the way back 20 years to when it came out. And then in 2014, Deutsche Grammophon re-released it on the 10th anniversary. And obviously we're now in 2024, so another decade on. And this work is still living and breathing phenomenally well in I would say, in every single one of these different areas, in actual fact. So, the areas where we're really focused as publishers is obviously, as I've said, in the promotion side, in the programming side of the live concert and the touring of it, but also in the sync and soundtrack side of the album, of the record. Blue Notebooks is a phenomenally successful album from a sync perspective. So there've been syncs in places like Handmaid's Tale and in the new Fast X trailer with Vin Diesel, which if any of you are into that kind of exploding cars, apparently it's great. I don't know. It's not my thing.
Arrival was another example, right?
Arrival, the Oscar-winning movie Arrival, and the Denis Villeneuve movie. So, it gives us the opportunity 20 years on to look at this album and this project and this piece of music almost as if it was a new work. So it keeps evolving, it keeps developing. And so, again, through us working together, and this is why we felt it was quite a relevant case study, is that, we have that ability to keep it living, to keep it breathing. And I can't see any reason why this particular work shouldn't have another 20 years in it, where we're still, hopefully we won't still be sitting here and talking about it, but we might all be retired by that point. But it's got that capacity because it's got so many touch points around this spectrum.
Yeah, and that's the case that why we can always include it again in the concert program, or Max want to include it again. So when he is up with concerts, really often there's one half with the Blue Notebooks and the other half with a new work or another work. So that also helps. So we don't say no, that story is completely told some years ago. We don't need that or want to do it anymore because when, as you said, because it lives again and again through other things, it's always relevant and good to have it in the concerts again. And that's the same with all the other projects. Normally you would say, okay, there's that big peak with the album release and then the tour, and then everything is gone. That's completely wrong. That projects from from Daniel or from Víkingur also, you can of course do it some years later again, and they are still good, and there's still good marketing power on that to promote the concerts.
Well, what interests me also, Michael, is when you promoted the Blue Notebooks here in Berlin, I think it was 2 years ago, I thought it was also interesting in terms of audience development because there was a crowd that had never seen at Philharmonie.
Yeah, that's completely right. That was a crowd I think never seen on the Philharmonie there because we went with the advertisement, everything completely digital. So there were no advertisement on other page on other things than Max Richter's Instagram account. So we had the release date. It was planned very good around a specific date. I can't remember what it was exactly, but it was very good planned. He did one post, and then we had, of course, a strategy with other posts, and that helped to get the sold out Philharmonie in Berlin.
And again, that was the project where I think we got aligned, like this one single concert date, we got aligned 6 months, 8 months before to talk about the social media strategy, how to tap into Max's digital fan base collectively.
Exactly. So normally it starts if you hear the idea or we hear the idea, and the next thing is to call each other and ask what can we do together, or of course with other partners as well, what can we do to make it a success.
So I think we can possibly wrap up here and open the room to questions if there are any.
Hello, Fabian Krause, Classical Next. I would, these are beautiful stories. I could listen to them all the time because we obviously want to see these partnerships. That's why we are also here with our conference and have all the sectors together at one table so that you can create these partnerships. Maybe to share also like the process of finding these partnerships and then to also find an agreement, you know, because some of you might also have these experiences that it's sometimes a difficult process to find an agreement between these partnerships, especially when it comes to rights, like images you produce or recordings or material created through these partnerships. Like, can you give us a little bit of insight? Are there obstacles, or was it easy? How long is the process to find these kind of, to align these partnerships together?
So maybe I start here. I mean, it's not a coincidence that we called this session artist-focused or artist-centric. It actually all starts with, with conversations with artists and their managers of what's an artist vision and how to achieve it across the different segments and touch points. And actually, our businesses are actually, yes, they are converging somehow in the digital space, but the way, and so potentially it could be like competitive and taking away attention, or rights issues might arise. But actually, the way we approach our partnerships, there is actually no real overlap. There's just synergies. And with the long lead times and the proper planning that we have, we can avoid all of the short time, ad hoc hassle that we see in our industry every year now. That say an artist wants to release an album and is looking for a tour to promote it, and with what we often observe, like with 6 months or even a year, it just doesn't work because the planning cycles are already far ahead. And so I think it's this artist-centric approach that enables us to cut through with the project without cutting into each other's areas.
Hi, I'm David Vinces from Music Biennale Zagreb. Wonderful presentation, these stories as well. I was wondering if you could give some examples of, these two examples that you've kept, repeating seem to be sort of selling themselves. So how much are you involved into, trying to bring to the audience certain kind of like, niche or, things that, haven't been heard as much, and like supporting the artists where, where is that take, or is that at all part of your role to kind of like put focus on something that hasn't been in the focus in the previous 5-10 years, and how do you make that happen? That would be what I would be very curious about.
Yeah, I think that taps into the A&R side, the artists and repertoire, the signing side of what certainly we do as a publisher, and I know Deutsche Grammophon does as a record label. And it's very much around supporting early talent that's developing, as well as supporting composers and artists who are also very well established, like the ones that we've talked about today. And I think with a new, young artist or composer, what you're looking for is one access point initially, and if you can find that one access point, then there are then opportunities to sort of pivot off onto other access points. I think it's a combination in this day and age in 2024 about storytelling. So you've got to be able to tell a story. The artist has to have something unique to say, and that. Not every artist is a composer, not every composer is an artist, but certainly what we're looking for every time we sign a new composer and put our resource and our faith and our time and our money behind them is, what are you trying to say? Who are you? What's your voice? And if you've got something really special to say and the music matches the quality of your storytelling, then that is really exciting. And that's when we can get behind young developing artists. So there are hundreds of young developing artists that we are supporting across, particularly, the records and publishing side, very different in some cases. But those are the sort of key ingredients I think that we're looking for.
I was actually really grateful for your question because, yes, on the face of it, of course, the success of Víkingur Ólafsson and Max Richter is self-explanatory. Why are we presenting these cases? Well, actually, because just very few years ago, Max Richter and Víkingur Ólafsson, they were not household names. They were these kind of, niche artists with a very special profile that, attracted our interest and that we wanted to work with them, but they were nowhere near where they are. And it's been a matter of probably 5 years in the case of Víkingur, and probably a decade in the case of Max, and campaigns and collaborations such as ours that actually led to this point. So when we signed Víkingur in, I think it was 2017, and people, we released his Philip Glass album, people were like, Víkingur who? Víkingur? So this is actually not too long ago, and with all of the touch points that we employed with repertoire planning over, I think by now, 6 albums with Bach as a recurring item. After half a decade, we've gotten to the stage where you feel it's self-explanatory. And similar with Max Richter, because I think Vivaldi Recomposed was a smash hit in 2014, 2015. But the systematic work on his compositions on his performing career only started, I believe, in 2017. And I think it was pivotal that you came in the mix, and by signing publishing of Max, you with your sync team in the US and in the UK, you secured quite a lot of these Hollywood franchises for Max.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point, isn't it, that every artist, is a developing artist at some point. Everybody starts somewhere, and I think what we're always very aware of is, we put the artist in the middle. We have to listen to their story, and it goes back to the point I was making: is what's their story, what are they trying to say, and how do we support it? So, everybody gets through, up to a certain point, and then there obviously are those superstars that keep going. But I think the way that we approach it is always, if you have something interesting to say, and your music is matches that, then there's something here to work with, and we can really get behind trying to amplify your voice.
Well, I think that wraps up our session beautifully. Unless there are any pressing, urgent questions, we can, of course, also break out and discuss afterwards. If there's questions, ideas, we'd love to hear those. And, well, thank you both. Thank you, Tash. Thank you, Michael. And thank you for being here with us and for your attention.